Good evening and welcome to Hobbycraft TV. I'm Charlotte and I'm the artisan here at Hobbycraft Woking. Today I'm going to be demonstrating some acrylic painting techniques using some of the great deals available in the art sale that we have in store and online currently. Firstly, I want to quickly mention the work we've done in all Hobbycraft stores to ensure our customers and colleagues are as safe as possible in store. For more information though, head online to our website. And do stay until the end to find out more about our Artist of the Year competition. Remember, we are live here, so if you have any questions about the demo or the products being used, pop them in the comments below and we will try and answer some live on air. But if we don't get around to answering your question, they'll be answered in the comments after we're done. Let's get started. So today, I'm going to be taking you through step by step how to paint this lovely acrylic owl. You can also find my blog post on the Hobbycraft website, where I've broken it down into steps and techniques and tips there too. So, your first thing you're going to do, you're going to find your picture you'd like. Now you don't always have to use a reference photo, but I like to in order to capture that animal accurately. Now this is one photo that I've taken myself of a lovely tawny owl. So I've drawn it out first. I used I think it was an HB pencil, quite lightly, just looking at those shapes. So first things first, I'm going to be making all the darkest colours for this tawny owl. So looking at all these bits here. So this looks like a dark brown colour. So let's mix some acrylics. So I should probably say first, the paper I'm using is the CY acrylic paper. And the acrylics that I'm using today are the Pebeo Studio acrylics. I find these have a really, really nice opacity to them. They layer really beautifully. So taking a burnt umber, and then I might just mix in a little bit of the ultramarine just to get rid of how warm it is. My biggest tip for using acrylics is making sure you've mixed enough paint, because there's nothing worse than getting halfway through and realising you've run out of that colour. So let's have a look. Oh, that's quite a dark colour. I might want to go a little bit lighter. So I'm just going to add some yellow ochre just to lighten that up. I find yellow ochre is a really good alternative to using white to lighten things up, because it still has that yellowness to it, but it's got the opacity to lighten things up. Yeah, that looks a bit better now. So I'm just painting in all these darkest darks on this owl. So one key thing when we're painting anything that's got feather, fur, anything textural, is to make sure you're painting in the direction that the fur or feathers is going in. So for here we're going right over this owl, curving our brush strokes. I'm using just a flat shader brush here, number 10 in the De La Rowney Graduate brushes. I find these are just a really nice brush. They're synthetic and they last a really long time.
So we have a couple of hellos.
Hello. Everybody said hello.
So Julie says hello everyone, Joe says good evening, Emma, Lynn and Chrissy are all saying hi.
Hello. Hello guys. Thanks for joining us. So I'm just going down the middle of this owl. So anywhere that I can see any hint of darkness in the feathers, I'm popping it in. So with acrylics, unlike watercolours, we can layer these paints up and we can cover up layers underneath. So it's a little bit different to watercolour painting. So even if you make a mistake, you can just cover it up. It's not a problem. So they're a lot more forgiving. So I'm just going to do some down on the body now. So I'm using just quite bold brush strokes here to capture some of these bits of feathers going on. So you can be quite free and loose with this bit. So what we're doing is almost applying like a base layer to this owl. So this is quite rough. And then the further in we get, we're going to be a bit more refined with our brush strokes and marks. So when you're happy with that you've covered all the dark bits, then we're going to move on to more of a mid-tone. So by mid-tone, I mean a colour that's not a highlight, not a shadow. So maybe some of these warmer browny colours. So always wipe your brush first before washing it with acrylics, I find, as you'll end up cleaning your water, changing your water very, very often. So always make sure double, triple wash it. Really give it a good wash. Okay. So let's look at a warmer colour. So this sort of much warmer colour here. So let's mix it on this mixing thing. You can use plates, tear off palettes, anything you'd like. I'm just using just this lid because I like working on a flat surface when I'm mixing.
We do have a question about mixing.
Yeah, of course.
So Lynn has asked, is it trial and error mixing colours to get the right tone, or is there a holy grail, i.e. adding green to the brown? I wouldn't have thought to do that. Sorry, I'm new to painting.
Oh, when I added the blue to the brown. So it's all to do with colour theory. So I don't know whether you've ever seen like your colour wheel. So you've got all your colours going round and your colours on the opposite side from one another. So blue and orange are opposites for each other. So because this burnt umber, where is it? This burnt umber is pretty warm tone. It's almost orange, I'd say. If I add some of the ultramarine, so this blue to it, we're going to neutralise the orange in there and make it less orangey, but still keep that brownness.
Thanks for the question, Lynn.
Thank you very much for that question. Let's see, you can always do a little test on kitchen roll and see if you like the colour. That's quite nice. Might go for that. We can always cover it if we're not 100% liking it though. Yeah, I quite like this colour. So I'm varying the sorts of brush strokes that I'm doing still. So round here, we've got a lot more of this colour, so I'm using bigger brush strokes. And then where we've got wispier bits, I'm then turning the brush to use the thinner angle part of it to then give me finer brush strokes. So still flicking in that direction though. And you can even start to layer over that darker colour at this stage. So you're breaking up those shapes. As we go along more, you'll see me break up all the shapes I'm applying more and more.
So we have another question from Dawn, which is, hi Charlotte, what happens if you go wrong?
So if you go wrong with acrylics, you can just wait for it to dry and then just paint straight over. So it's not a problem at all. So unlike watercolours, if you make a mistake with watercolours, you might find yourself starting over because it's not very forgiving. But with acrylics, they've got that opacity to them. You can wait for it to dry and just cover it over. And you can do that as many times as you need to as well. These Pebeo acrylics I find quite opaque too, so they do cover a lot more easily. So I think I'm all done maybe with this mid-tone colour. So I'm then going to switch to my lighter colour. Just put a little bit more of that, okay. So I'm going to pretty much put my lightest colour over the rest of the whole owl because I want that to be a base, and then I can add all my detail and other colours over the top. So as I said before, you can find this make on the blog as a step-by-step. So don't worry if you've joined halfway through or anything like that, you can still catch up And you can see all these stages that I'm going through as well. So to make this light colour, I'm definitely going to need a lot of white because it's very, very light. And then I might add a tiny bit of this colour that I use for the mid-tone, just so it's an off-white. Because the owl is quite light in areas, but it's not 100% white. Might add a tiny touch of that brown from earlier as well. Let's see where we're at. Oh yeah, it's a nice colour. So it's going to look a little bit splodgy at the moment, but that's all right. This is just going to be our base layer.
So Louise is asking, what acrylics are you using, because she missed the beginning?
Hi Louise, I'm using the Pebeo Studio Acrylics. They're currently on offer in our art sale. I think they're half price down to £2 now, which is brilliant. Really, really good value. Keep checking your reference picture. So I'm just covering up the rest of this little cute owl. Maybe you need to do a little bit more of this mid-tone colour up here. As you can see that they're still blending really nicely together, these colours. Let's just get this bit done, and then we can move on to more details. So I'm just covering the rest of the gaps in this owl. With every layer, still think about the direction that you're going in, because you can see every little brush stroke you do. Okay, so I think we've pretty much covered this owl. So now we can start working into other little bits. So you might want to add some grey bits around here, more colours, and just keep building it all up. I'm now going to switch to one that I've done earlier. So I made one earlier because, as I said before, this owl took me probably about 2 hours to do. So we don't have time for that, unfortunately, today. So this is one that I was continuing to build up from before. So as you can see, the layers have really, really started to come to life with this one. And you can see that it's looking a lot more like this owl now. So I've really, really built those layers up. So all I've done for the beak is I've done the same thing. So I've gone in with the darker colours and then built up to lighter using yellows. And then for the eyes, I'm going to take you through step by step for the eyes now. So I've done my base layer. So I filled in the dark first, and then I've put in some brown, and now we're going to work in more detail into these eyes. I love painting eyes and animals. I think they're the most interesting things ever. So this doesn't look very alive at the moment, so how do we get it to look like that? So let's make the brown again. So I'm using burnt umber. And then I might want to add some of this colour, the raw sienna. So I'm going to try and blend things in. So let's put down some more of this colour to get more warmth coming in this owl's eyes, because they were getting quite dark before. So already you can see those irises a little bit more. And then I'm going to add some raw sienna with a little bit of white over the top. Just in that bottom part, almost like a U shape. just for some nice highlights. Then we go a little bit more. Might want to bring a little bit of yellow ochre. So with acrylics, it really all is about the layering. Now I can really get those irises glowing almost. So each time you apply your lighter colour in your irises, you apply less and less. Now we can add those lovely highlights to this owl. So I'm going to first have a little look at my reference. So I can see I've got my highlights here and there's little ones there. Now I would never ever use just pure white for highlights because they look a little bit intense, a little bit excessive. So what we want to do is take some white, and I like adding blue because I think it just makes things pop. So just add a little bit of blue. So it's going to contrast to all the warm tones in the eye. It's not a lot of blue, just a little bit.
So Anne has said, love how you built up all the different shades. And we have another comment from Julie saying, love it, you can make it look so easy, I might have to try this. So that's nice. We also have a question from Debjani, who has asked, if you're starting out, how do you decide what colours to buy to make up a basic kit to complete most projects?
That's a really, really good question. So if you're first starting out, you can buy either a starter kit of acrylics. So usually they come with your primary colours, normally yellow ochre, burnt sienna, or burnt umber black and white. So you've got a nice range there. If you want to get like bigger sizes of this, I would advise getting definitely your 3 primaries, black, white, and maybe a brown, although you can mix your browns from your primary colours. But you don't need a lot of colours to get started in acrylics though. As long as you've got your primaries in black and white, you're fine. So as you can see from adding in these little highlights, it's really made this owl pop out now. So next thing I'm going to talk about is an acrylic technique or just a general painting technique called glazing. Now glazing is when we put a really, really thin application of colour over the top. It doesn't change the tone, so how dark or light something is, but it changes the colour. So it's almost like a filter. So I just need to make sure that my brush is completely clean. So what I want to do a wash is maybe like some greys, just to deepen some of these colours in the owl. Let's just switch that palette. So to make your grey, just black and white, but we don't need a lot because it's going to be mostly water. Might add a touch of brown just to make a warmer looking brown. So then now I'm going to add my water to it. Always test on the kitchen roll if it's thin enough, maybe not. Yeah, it's almost like a watercolour consistency. So then when you paint, you can still see all the colours underneath coming through. Don't know whether you can see that there. But you're just almost giving it a little wash. So it's a really, really thin application of paint. But I find glazing in acrylics or oils gives just that extra layer of depth and really, really makes it. You can see it's not really changing the colour of things too much, just giving that extra bit. You can definitely add more colour though if you want a slightly darker glaze. So I think underneath here we need a little bit darker. Just underneath his little head. Just where that shadow would fall. Right. When you've done all your glazing, then it's time for your finishing details, so all your highlights and all the different textures, because we're yet to discuss one of my favourite tools, which is a palette knife. Absolutely love palette knives. They're really great for mixing, but also applying your paint. So we're going to discuss that. So let's maybe just do some highlights first. Let's switch these palettes around again. So I want to make sure I've got a nice light colour. So pretty much what we went for when we were covering that owl to begin with. So off-white. So never use pure white, just looks a little bit too intense. So let's see, this is going to be too light still. Oh, no, that's all right. Be a little bit more. So keep checking back on your reference photo though. So maybe I want a few more details here. So I'm looking where I can see all the light feathers. So this is where I don't want to paint everything, I just want to paint those sections that I want to illuminate. So really think about the direction, especially around the eyes. There's quite a lot here.
So we've got a few more comments come in. Beth has said, "Hi Charlotte, absolutely brilliant. I can't wait to have a go." Ellis is saying you are making this look easy. A couple of comments on the glazing, just people loving the tip on that. And also with the highlights, amazing to watch you make the eyes come to life. Love these live sessions, from Caroline. Thank you, Caroline.
Brilliant, thank you, Caroline. So I'm just continuing to bring these highlights out. So there's a lot of feathers here, just at the bottom. So this is really where all the details start to come through. You can see all the different textures in the owl's feathers. So like round here, they're a bit more clumped together. So the more varieties of marks that you're making, so you're breaking up those shapes more, the more realistic that your owl is going to look. So some nice highlights there. A tip if you want a really, really precise line is to literally flatten your brush on the palette. So even with a round brush like this, I'm just pushing that brush down to give a really, really sharp edge to it. So then when I go to use it, it's going to be a lot more sharper. Let's do some more highlights down here.
Actually, we do have a question about the brushes you're using.
Yeah.
So Louise has asked what it is exactly that you use at the moment.
So I'm using the De La Rowney Graduate brushes. You can buy these in-store and online. They're £2.50 each. They're really affordable. You can also buy them in packs. They come in a wide variety. So I've got some more here. So they come in really little ones, bigger round ones, flat ones. Also got fan. They come in an amazing variety and they're really durable. I use them for oils, acrylics and watercolours. They're really good. But make sure you never mix your oil and acrylic brushes. do some highlights on this side just to balance him out. I really love painting feathers because you can be a little bit more freeform with how you're doing them. So it doesn't have to be exactly perfect. Let's have a little bit more up here. Right, he seems to be really, really coming together now. So let's talk about other ways that you can use brushes with acrylics or oils to get some texture. So fan brushes, absolutely amazing brushes, I love them. You can use them in this sort of way to get really thin brush strokes, or you can use them in this sort of direction to get a more literally like a fan mark going down. Let me show you. So if we cover our brush with the fan and then drag down, you can see it's a completely different texture. Let's get a little bit more paint. Helps if I've got paint on my brush though. Let's go a little bit more white. There we go. So I've got more paint now. So you'll see this is a bit more. So it's like a really interesting texture where it looks almost like hair. But you can also use it on the side for really fine lines, fine marks, which is really nice. Or you can literally stipple it to get another sort of bristle-like texture. Or dab it on the end for a completely different texture as well. They're so versatile, these brushes.
And Carol is asking, what paper are you using?
So I'm using the CY acrylic pad, which I have one here, which looks like this. We sell them in A3 and A4 in store and online. They're really, really nice pads. I just find it doesn't buckle or bend the paper. It's brilliant. It's smooth. It's just a really, really nice paper, because you can get paper that's more like a canvas texture, which some people will like, some people don't, because it's got that rough grain to it. I love this sea white paper because it's smooth enough, but it's got the weight to it that the paper's not going to buckle or anything with the paint. Oh, went in my wash. So that was fan brushes. Let's have a go at some palette knife work. So for palette knives, you really do need more paint. So let me just mix up a slightly bigger batch. There we go, that looks better. So you can, oh, it's a horrible noise. You can scrape palette knives, or you can just use just the end of the palette knife for a different effect. Or you can stamp it too. It normally gives a much more textured, or what's called an impasto, so just really, really thickly textured mark, which creates a really nice sense of just volume to these feathers, really. You can also use it on its side, which I quite like. If you want like a really, really fine line, then you can definitely just almost stamp it down, and it gives you a really, really fine line, which is a completely different mark as well, which is really nice. Let's give it a little bit more texture up here. I think it just really tells us the volume of these feathers. There we go. Yeah, it's looking really nice. You can also scrape stuff off if you make a mistake, which is nice. So I think the final thing I've got to do is just some darker marks, just to go over the top and just make sure that I've defined all the areas that I need to define. because there's nothing worse than losing your contrast. So especially that I can see down here, I need a little bit more depth going on, so a little bit more darker. So I just might use a little bit of black in there. It's the same principle with the black as with the white, so never use pure black like you would never use pure white. Always mix it in with something, because black and white are shades, not colours. So I'm using that little round brush again, the number 1, and I've flattened my brush so that I've got it nice and fine, and I'm just going to go in and just give a little bit more texture just on top where I've put the palette knife marks, just to break it up a little bit. But you can still see coming through that really nice texture below. So keep going back and flattening it. If you're using a small paintbrush, you need to keep replenishing your paint a lot more than you think to. Be a little bit there. Just a couple more brush strokes and I think we'll be done. I mean, I could sit here and paint Annette for hours and hours, but I think he's done. Yeah. There we go, that's my interpretation of this little tawny owl. Quite happy with that. So don't forget, you can check out the blog to see my step-by-step of this little owl here. So I break it down into steps like I've done today, but just a little bit more detail so you can see the whole process. You can also check out my how to get started in acrylics, where you can see me painting also this lovely tiger eye, where I discuss fur texture a little bit more in depth there too. If you do have any more questions, do pop them in the comments below and I will try my best to answer them all after the live today. So, thank you so much for watching today. Now, about our Artist of the Year competition, it's still live. We've got 3 categories. We've got youth, student and adult, and each will win a trophy, a £200 Hobbycraft gift card, and an art goodie bag full of products from our favourite brands, and a showcase of your work on our social media channels. Winners will be chosen by a panel of expert artists, and entries close on the 30th of September. I can't wait to see all the amazing art you send us. You can see some now and it's absolutely amazing. We do still have our live demonstrations every week from stores across the country that you can watch online and craft along to. We have next Thursday a mixed media demo with artist Jenny Muncaster from her studio at the Colour Factory in Winchester, which is amazing, and I cannot wait to watch it. Thank you so much for joining us today. All of these deals are available in store and online, and I hope to see you in store soon. Thank you.